here into the Northeast in New England.
Yeah.
I mean, from Maine.
24-hour change has been unbelievable.
It's been unbelievable. What's been wild about this as well, we had 2 severe thunderstorm warnings issued in Maine yesterday. We had never seen that before in February. And the warmth was record as well. So we were setting records all over the place.
But we did it early in the morning. I mean, you were in the 60s overnight. And we set records in Houghton, Maine and Portland, Maine. Again, it came at about 6 a.m. So 24 hours ago is when you set your record high yesterday. And now we've dropped like more than 20 degrees.
I always think that's so cool. Now, in meteorology school, we had these forecasting contests. You probably did it at Penn State, too. And you always had to look at that midnight temperature in case they were dropping from there.
Right.
Because the temperature, usually we think about it at 2 in the afternoon when you hit that high. But sometimes a front comes through.
Falling temperatures through the day was always a fun forecast to make, right? A difficult one, nonetheless. All right, so you had that yesterday. Now we're going to see big changes today. It's going to feel more like February should feel. Temperatures are going to be in the 30s and 40s, knock 5 to 10 degrees off with the wind chill out there through today.
But we're going to see a warm-up. And by the way, this warm-up, we get a little bit of warm-up, but then we have a couple more douses of cold air that come in the next, 7 to 10 days.
The weather whiplash that we've had lately has been tremendous. We've got a really cool graphic I hope we get to. I mean, temperatures this weekend go back up above average. By Sunday, we're back to the 50s and 60s. Remember, Valentine's weekend, we set those records, right?
Yes.
Record cold in the Northeast. Look at Boston. We were 9 below. Then we had spring fever. It was 60. Then we went back to average. Then we had severe weather. And now, I mean, it's just been all over the place, right?
It is. Very rare for February.
Yes.
Did you want to say something else?
No, we'll talk about it a little more later. We'll talk about Boston snow, but we don't have time right now.
Okay, we'll do it later.
Let's talk about how rare this is.
The thing that catches my eye when you first look at this, we have all our big lows, but this, moisture coming up, usually we see it coming, from this direction.
But this has been your winter, Seattle. Wettest winter on record, and it's still raining this weekend. So tough weather there for you. Steph, we got to keep an eye on this little batch right here. This becomes the weather maker that we watch for next week's active weather. So we'll put it all into motion for you.
Okay, so we have these bops of energy, and this is what we look at in order to see them kind of come together. So it's like, wait, are we looking at this? Well, no, that thing's kind of rotating out. We look at this one here.
Scoots up. All right. Yeah. So we'll move that along, and we'll get rid of those circles. We'll put new ones on, but track that. And we track by Sunday that moving in again the northwest gets picked up in the flow and then translates here to
I feel like we've seen a lot of the same pattern where it's going up and over a ridge and then diving southbound. That seems to have been the pattern really for these last few days.
Very, ask anyone in the west who wants the rain. This is the pattern of the winter, right? So much of a ridge over the west. Really warm, too, for places like Montana. Speaks to that exact pattern. All right, so what happens is a low, though, develops and again tracks in a similar fashion through portions of the Ohio Valley, the Midwest. There'll be that rain-snow line that we got to track.
This one doesn't dig as far south as Petros did. If you remember, Petros started down here in Texas. This is where this low developed and then had swung up this way. This low is going to be much farther north in latitude.
The models are pretty similar when it comes to placement of everything right now. So we're going to look at our general forecast for the severe. The other difference is that the jet streams are not as strong as what we saw last week. Not to say that they may not develop stronger, but right now that's what the models are pointing to. Severe area from East Texas up into Arkansas. This is Tuesday, Steph, Super Tuesday. Got a lot of folks planning to head out to the polls, so we're going to keep an eye on the weather across the country. Tuesday night, we still could have storms. There are torcons of about 3s right now, and of course, as we get more confidence, those numbers could change.
Yeah, so then everything's going to be shifting eastbound. Again, the Carolinas, the Mid-Atlantic, I mean, right where we just saw. I mean, these were not small tornadoes. Usually in February, you're going to think more EF1, 2 thing. We had several EF3s, one in Virginia, one in Florida.
Very long track, one in Virginia, actually. So this is, again, an area that we've got to watch by next week. A forecast that will evolve. There'll be a severe side. There'll be a snowy side, too, which I'll talk more about coming up at 50 minutes past the hour.
All right, let's take you into the southern plains now, where we are talking about
not kidding, Steph. Yes, I do, too. And I was thinking that's how I was going to take that toss from you guys, was to talk about that. I love the order of the rainbow, right? Red, orange, yellow, green. And we do our maps like that, too. Red to purple. We've got, this is the way life is set up, right, in Roy G. Biv. Let's take a look at our colors on our maps and what this means for the weather that we're going to see next week. All right, so as we get into next week, there's another storm system. It's similar in some ways to this past week's, but it's different in others. So we're going to talk about that. We start with today, and we have some time, so I want to show you first, getting into the weekend. We've got this big vortex up here over the Hudson Bay. That's going to send little pieces of energy, maybe getting into northern Maine. Otherwise, not a big deal. Don't worry about that. Keep an eye on what's happening in the west. By the time we get into the weekend, we're going to see a piece of energy start to dive down, and here we go on Tuesday, diving down right back into the Tennessee Valley. Valley and into portions of the Midwest and Ohio Valley. So that's going to be the impetus for the next storm system that we track. And this one will also have a stormy side with possible severe weather and a snowy side as well. Let's talk about that and getting beyond that as we get you into next weekend. A similar pattern setting up with another ridge in the west and another dip in our jet across the east and potentially another piece of energy to create another area of low pressure and storm. So we're in a very sort of active pattern right now. We get you midweek to this particular low. There'll be a lot of warm, moist air coming up here and coming back into the system, and that is going to provide into the cold air the chance for some snowfall to develop. Now, we are days out from this. There's still uncertainty as to totals in this forecast. We're going to track it over the weekend into next week, tracking out of the Rocky Mountains by Tuesday, moving up here into the Midwest. The snow stretching from Iowa back into lower Michigan. We're going to be looking for an area of snow, potentially heavy snow into Michigan. We got to keep an eye on Illinois. We got to keep an eye on Wisconsin as well. Definitely some model differences still at this point, Steph.
Okay, so let's talk about March because, yeah,